WCLE. Well, it's a little bit after 10 o'clock. We've been telling you all throughout our morning show today that we was hoping to have a very special interview with Chief Meteorologist Paul Barys with our news partners at Channel 3. And he has been gracious enough to call in this morning to give us a little bit of his time. First of all, Paul, good morning to you. How you doing, sir?
Very good, Dwayne. It's good to talk to you again.
Good talk to you. We talked together a lot in the afternoons in the past several years. I know during the last few months we haven't been able to because of the pandemic and busy schedules and different things going on. But I tell you, Paul, some of the favorite things that people told me about when I was doing the afternoon show, and we were doing those pretty much every afternoon, how much they enjoyed listening to you in the afternoons, do a live forecast, and talk about all the other stuff that we usually did.
Well, you know, the funny thing is when I first started, when I got out of college, and I was working at what we call a private weather service in 1974 in the Chicago area, but we had clients all over the Midwest. And I used to go, I was the new guy. I was just out of college, the kid out of college who thought he knew everything. And I would on occasion go on radio stations, which was the first time I ever had a chance to do that. And I really, really liked it. It was a lot of fun. And some of the stations were, you know, a real big market, Chicago. And I remember I used to talk to some of the disc jockeys that you only heard about.
Yeah.
And so I always got a kick out of doing that. But it was something that always stuck in the back of my mind. And when, if you want to hear this, this is pretty interesting how I started in television.
Sure.
This is an interesting story. I was working at this private weather service, but I was making very, 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 very little money. I was making $2.65 an hour.
Oh, goodness.
At the time. And I remember I was a college graduate who was working in a specific business, and in the Chicago area, which is pretty expensive. And I was making $2.65 an hour. So I was still living with my parents because I couldn't live by myself on that amount of money. There's no way. So, and I did that for almost a year, and I learned a tremendous amount from the people that I worked with, my boss and the other meteorologists that worked there. I learned how to forecast. I thought I knew how to forecast, but I didn't. I learned how to forecast from those people. But one day, and I usually work the weekends. I was one of the weekend guys. We got hired by a television station in the Chicago area. And that television station had just hired a female weather person who was a model. So she didn't really know anything about weather. She's very pretty. And I ended up talking with her, and she was a very sweet, sweet person. But she just didn't know anything about weather. So we had to consult with her on the phone and tell her how to put a weathercast together. Now, back in those days, we didn't have the weather computers like we do now with everything moving and all that. It was just a map on a wall. And so it was a little simpler back then. And the main thing was to keep it as simple as possible so she could, you know, look really nice on the air. She had a real nice voice. And she could just give you the forecast and maybe tell you, yeah, the cold front's coming or the warm front's coming and all that kind of stuff. So I would give her briefings, and after doing those briefings, I said to one of the other meteorologists there, I said, I think I could do that. And they all shook their heads and said, no, you can't. And they said, no way. And that was the seed that was planted in my head.
Wow.
By working at this weather service and by just giving her instructions on what to say, because basically she had a real good memory, and everything I told her is what she said on the air. And I enjoyed it. I felt like I would watch her. I'd say, that away, Melody. Her name was Melody Rogers. I'd say, that away, Melody. You know, Melody's probably now, I'm guessing, probably 80-something years old.
Wow. Well, what a story. And we're so glad that you went through those processes and saying, hey, I think I could do that. Again, we're joined with Chief Meteorologist Paul Barys with our news partners at Channel 3. Of course, if you are anywhere around this area, you heard the news yesterday on several media platforms that Paul Barys is going to retire in July, you said. So we still got several months to enjoy you on the air. And it's just one of those things, Paul. I think back from when I was younger, and I think I've told you before, I don't know if you remember the story, but when I was younger, when I first got married, of course, you set standards at your own home. You go in your home and you find a station that you typically watch the evening news. We're talking 30+ years ago, or right around 30 years now. You know, and you kind of channel surf and you try to figure out between locally 3, 9, and 12 who you're going to get your news and your weather from. And I remember, and I'm not going to tell the station I was watching at that time, but my mom loved you, Paul, when she was alive. I think I've told you this story so many times. And every time I talked to my mom, it was Paul this, Paul that, Paul said tomorrow, well, Paul said this. And that was probably about maybe before, even around the time, you know, Paul said it would be like this was the catchphrase. And finally my mom just told me one day, she said, son, have I not taught you anything? Do you not watch Channel 3 for your weather? Paul is the best. And then one day, you know, out of spite, I thought, I'm just going to watch it. I'm just going to prove her wrong. And then from that day forward, Paul, we watched and have watched Channel 3. Every time we get in for the evening news to watch news, it's always your forecast and relying on you. Anytime there's storms coming through our area, Channel 3 was always our go-to, not only because it was Channel 3, but because of you.
No, that's really nice. I'm glad you know, the promotion department put all that together, and everybody seemed to like me a lot. Well, you know, the funny thing about television, when I retire, if I stay till August, I'm going to leave in July. But if I stay till August, I started in '85, so that would be 36 years that I'd been in television. So basically, I'll be almost 36 years when I retire.
Right.
And that's just the Channel 3. I worked before that, so I've worked in television. It'll be 46 years, and in March it'll be 46 years that I've been in television. Wow. And that's 4 lifetimes in television. Yep. Because a lot of people don't last that long. Because it's not as easy as business as you think you do. It's there's a lot of time away from your family. My wife calls herself a weather widow. A weather widow. Because anytime there's a storm, a big storm, thing, I'm gone. I agree. I leave. I wasn't here. I wasn't at my house for the blizzard. I wasn't there, and I wasn't. During tornado, you know, when there's tornado outbreaks, I'm gone, and that was Easter. You know, last Easter's when we had the last tornado outbreak. So it doesn't matter if it's Christmas, Easter, your birthday, anniversary, or whatever. You know, you got to be at the station. So it's not a bad job at all. But it's different. And if you have to work mornings, to me, that's just a killer. If I had to work mornings, I wouldn't have been in television 46 years. And if I had to work, rotating shifts, which is what the fellows at the National Weather Service do. That means, like, you know, a certain number of days on the first shift, certain number of days on the second. And I know a lot of people work those shifts. And I did it for a little bit when I was in Cleveland, Ohio. And I got sick a lot. My body was not cooperating, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I developed headaches, and I thought I was going to die, and went to a doctor, and he laughed at me, and he said, as soon as you stop doing those rotating shifts, this all will go away. And he was right. It did. It's just some people can't handle it, and I couldn't have worked 46 years if I had to do that. So working, a lot of people say, well, you're working till what, midnight almost? I go, yeah. I said, boy, that's a lousy shift. I said, I'm so used to it, it doesn't bother me at all. It's as easy as can be. It's as easy as can be. So I was close enough. This is the other thing for a personal part. I was close enough. I only live about 9-10 miles from the TV station. So after the 6 o'clock show, I was able to go home and watch my kids grow up, you know, for a couple hours. Sure. As long as the weather was nice. And I got to see them, and I got to read them a story before they went to bed when they were little. Now they're all grown up now. But I can, you know, if I had lived in a real big town, like when I was in Cleveland, if I had been the #1 guy at the Cleveland station, that was a 45-minute drive to work. I wasn't going home for dinner. I wasn't going home to see my family. So I wouldn't have seen the kids hardly at all. And I would have missed all that. And made a little more money working in a bigger market, but it wouldn't have been worth it. This was worth it. So that's why Chattanooga has just been such a blessing for me and my family in a lot of ways. And forecasting the weather is always the fun part. That's the part I'm going to miss the most, and the people at the station and the people I see all the time. That'll be the shit, you know, just the actual work, you know, going on television. That's okay, but that's the part where they pay you for. But the rest of it is the more fun part. Just putting it together and talking to people. So that's just like any other job. You know, you miss your friends who you see day in and day out.
Again, we're speaking with Chief Meteorologist Paul Barys with our news partners at Channel 3. A big announcement was sent out yesterday to a lot of the media outlets that Paul would be retiring at the end of the summer in July, and 35 years here locally. And Paul, you know, walk us through here. I know we're getting to a lot of different facets of an interview, but for 35 years you've got a lot to tell, I'm sure. But let's talk about the predicting of the blizzard of 1993. And then, of course, you've already touched on the tornadoes. Kind of walk us through that blizzard, first of all, because that's something I think it's in the back of all of our minds as of any age of remembering that. And then, you know, just the calm that you would bring during the most difficult times, when there was those severe storms that come through our area, and we were tuning into you, and you were telling us to hunker down, get in your safe place. All of those things. How did you manage to do that, knowing that the severity of what was coming?
The severe part, I'll cover that first. As far as the severe weather goes, you got to remember I've been doing this a real long time, so I've gone through a lot of storms, and the one in 2011 was the worst. That was the worst outbreak I ever saw. Actually, it was when I was in the private weather service in April 3rd of 1974. There was almost as big as outbreak as what we had in 2011. But I was at a private weather service. I wasn't on TV. So I got to see all the stuff that was happening. But in 74, you really didn't see it like you see it now because everything's so instantaneous. The one thing that really bothered me, I'll tell you this is sort of personal, but I'll tell you this. During the 2011 outbreak, I was on the air for 11 straight hours.
I remember that.
Except for I had 4 bathroom breaks. That's what I tell people. I had to go to the bathroom, for 4. 11 straight hours, you're talking a lot.
Sure.
And you're drinking water, you know, to keep your voice, you know, from getting too gravelly. And I was on the air. And Nick Austin was with us. Nick did a great job that night. And he and I were trading back and forth, and we were talking to each other on the air. And he was looking at I was at the green wall, and he was at the radar. And I was asking him for certain things, and he would pop up certain things. He could see certain things popping up. You got to remember, though, even back then, 2011, that's only 9 years ago. Things were a little different back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, the technology is so much better even now than it was then. The technology is exploding. So it wasn't as high res as it is now. So we were doing stuff, and I got a call. All right, somebody told me, they said, Paul, while I'm on the air, somebody said, Paul, we have video of the tornado in Ringgold. Now, this is after dark because the tornado hit at dusk. And I said, I mentioned to the folks that okay, we're going to show you some video of the tornado. I said, I don't know what it looks like, but, here it is. And they rolled it, and it was from a phone, and somebody took a picture of the tornado. It was getting dark, so it wasn't as good a video as it could have been, but it was still, you could see the funnel, and it was big. It was real big as it was going through Ringgold. And I paused, and I couldn't really say anything for 10 or 15 seconds because I knew people were dying. I see, but it was about an hour old. It was about an hour old video. But we knew there had been a tornado in Ringgold, but we didn't really know how bad. We figured it was bad, but we didn't know how bad. But as soon as I saw the video, I knew people were dead, and that I couldn't say anything, and that's what bothered me. So what you got to do is you got to suck it up. You got to, if you don't want to talk when your voice is going to start breaking, so you just don't say anything, and the pictures say everything, and you're not doing play-by-play. So you just stop, and then you talk about how bad that was, extremely serious, and that was the same tornado went through Appleton, and the same tornado that went through southern Bradley County.
Right.
And I got to see in person about a day or two later. I went to southern Bradley County, and I got to see the damage, south of Cleveland. That was just unbelievable. And I met some people out there who told me the stories of what they went through that day, and it was amazing. It was a miracle. It was a miracle more people weren't killed. I mean, that was an F3 tornado, a half a mile wide, and with winds of 160 miles an hour. That's just, it's unbelievable. People who live through it, even if they go through it a number of times, like some people in Oklahoma and Texas go through, they just tell you it's the most terrifying thing you've ever had in your life. It's like a horrible nightmare. And to go through that was amazing. And the people, I had got a call a couple days later from the head of the Air Pollution Control Board of Hamilton County. And he told me, he said, I had never met him. And he told me, he said, I want to thank you for saving my life and my family's life. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you went on the air and you said there was a tornado heading towards Appleton. So we had a plan, we had our tornado plan, and we got up from the TV and we walked into our safe room and we went in there, and within 30 seconds, a tornado hit our house. And the house literally blew up. The house was gone. And we were, the only place that we were safe was in that room. If we had been anywhere else in that house, we would have been killed.
Wow.
And so he said, you saved our lives. And I said, no, I didn't. I said, I was like the weather radio screaming, and you had a plan, and you knew what to do. You knew where to go. If you hadn't done that, and if you hadn't prepared, you could have sat there and said, those guys are always wrong. And then it would have been bad. But you had a plan. And when I go to schools and just adult groups, I tell them all the time, I said, you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, it doesn't matter what the guy on TV is going to tell you. He said, you've got to do it. You got to know where to go. You can't sit there and have a family meeting when there's a tornado warning and say, well, what do you think we should do, everybody? You just got to go do it, and you got to do it quick, because you never know if this thing's going to hit you. And in this situation, this guy's life was saved. And a lot of the people who were killed down near Ringgold were in mobile homes.
Right.
And the saddest thing to me about mobile homes, and a lot of people live in mobile homes, and in good weather, they're fine places to live. But they are not good places to live in a tornado situation or real strong winds. And there's no place to hide in a mobile home. And, last Easter, a bunch of people near Chatsworth in Murray County in Georgia got killed in mobile homes when the Easter outbreak hit. And I don't know how to tell you what to do, because the main thing is it's better for you to get out of the mobile home, find a ditch somewhere, and hide in that ditch and pretend that somebody's going to be lobbing hand grenades at you. Just think of that. And that's exactly the same thing that you would do. Get away from the mobile home, because the mobile home is going to leave. And it's not going to leave in one piece. It's going to leave in lots of pieces. And you don't want to hide in there. People don't want to hear that. And I get looks from people when I tell them that. But it happens time and time again, Dwayne.
Yeah.
And there's just no place in a mobile home in a tornado situation that's safe. You have to get, but you don't want to be in your car either, because cars are the second worst place to be. Lots of people get hurt and killed in cars. They'll tumble over and over and over, and it's in a bad enough tornado, The good thing around here is most tornadoes around here are not that big. Most of them are the smaller ones, and they won't pick up a car, and they won't totally demolish a mobile home. But when we put out a tornado warning, we don't know how big it is. We just know that there's a tornado around, and that's the most important thing to learn from that. But you got a second, I could tell you about the blizzard, because that's sort of a funny story.
Sure, let's hear the blizzard story.
Okay, I'll tell you more about the blizzard. This is funnier, and it's less serious. A few days ahead of time, we knew the snowstorm was coming. At least looking at the weather charts that I was looking at that time, and the computer models were more primitive than they are now, but they were all converging on a single thought, which is rare. Computer models usually don't do that. So everything was pointing toward the storm Friday night and Saturday. And so on Monday when I came into work, I saw that. And we never used to give 7-day forecasts. We only gave 5-day forecasts back then because the science wasn't as good. And even today, the science isn't great for 6th and 7th day, but it's a little better. So what we were looking at, and every day it got closer and closer, it looked like it was coming. So as it was getting closer, I was telling the TV station, I was telling the news director, and I'd say, we got to prepare. We got a huge snowstorm coming. And then I think it was the day before or 2 days before, I said that this is going to be the worst snowstorm in the history of Chattanooga. And I don't really remember saying that, but I saw the video, so I know I did.
Video proof.
Yeah. So my news director at the time came up to me, and it's a different news director than we have now. And he said to me, "Why did you say that?" I said, "Well, Bill," I said, "it's going to be bad. It's a bad storm. It's definitely the worst thing that you ever see around here." He said, "But you're sticking your neck too far out. And you're probably going to be wrong." And I said, no, I'm pretty sure of this one. I said, I wouldn't worry about it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And people were absolutely shocked. And then we got, that night, that Friday night and Saturday morning, we had a thing called thunder snow.
Right.
And that's in the South. It's not that rare, but it's sort of rare, depending on how many snowstorms you get. But we don't get that much snow anyway around here, so to get thunder snow is pretty big. So I got calls from people, and they swore. They were so upset. They said that it was snowing. It was coming down so hard. I thought Jesus was coming down on a cloud. and they said it's the end times. I said, this is not, no, that's not what you see right now. It happens. It's like a thunderstorm instead of rain and snow. And it happens in the Great Plains and the Midwest all the time. Down here, it doesn't happen that often. But they were so awestruck by the power of that storm and by what it was doing, the things they had never seen before in their life. And maybe their grandma and grandpa never saw it either. So nobody knew that was even possible. So, and then trees are going down and power lines are going down, and everybody thought, this was the end. I said, "Well, this happens in the Midwest all the time." So that was sort of funny. That was sort of funny.
Yeah.
I had to reassure them that it wasn't, it
wasn't the end of time.
It wasn't Judgment Day, at least for them. And I said, just be careful out there and stay away from trees, because these trees are going to come down. And you got to remember, it was March. It wasn't January. So a lot of people did not expect that. They didn't. But we had that pretty much nailed. And as I had to stay in a hotel room, I really didn't sleep that much that night anyway, but I was in a hotel room in downtown Chattanooga, and they put us all in the hotel, and then they drove us across the Old Jotty Bridge. That's the main bridge coming over to the TV station.
Right.
And as they're driving me in this four-wheel drive vehicle, I'm looking outside, and I'm still somewhat half asleep. I'm looking outside, and I said, my gosh, this looks just like Chicago in the snowstorm.
Deja vu.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up. And so I was, and I had only been in Chattanooga. That was 93, so I'd only been there 8 years.
8 years, right.
And it was 8 years that I've been here. So I sort of made a name for myself with that storm. And they did, that Paul said it would be like this thing. And we sold T-shirts that said, "I survived the blizzard of '93." And a lot of kids come up to me. Well, they're not kids now. They're adults, and they say, "Yeah, that's the year I was born," or "I was only 2 when that happened."
Yeah,
and I look at myself and I go, I am getting old.
Yeah, that's true. Again, Chief Meteorologist Paul Barys is joining us right now from our news partners at Channel 3. Of course, Paul's been there at Channel 3 in our area for over 35 years. Got the news yesterday afternoon that Paul Barys is going to be retired in July of this year. And we're just kind of walking down memory lane, Paul, and we appreciate you spending the extra time with us on the radio because, Paul, one thing that you've always have been able to do, and something I've always been, being in radio, one thing that I wish that I could do to the caliber that you do is connect with people. When people are listening to your forecast, it's like you're telling one individual, like you did during the storms and all the other predictions and things and forecasts that you've done. And I think that's something not everybody, you're not talking at us, you're talking to us. And I think that's why we listen, and that's why you have saved lives, because you just have the presentation to make it feel like it's a one-on-one conversation. And that's a beautiful thing that you just don't really hear about in TV, media, or anything anymore, is just that connection with your listening audience or watching audience as well.
Well, when I was trying to get a job in television, and I had sent out some very crude tapes of what I looked like and sounded like. The tapes were terrible, which I'm glad I don't have any because I'd be embarrassed to even look at them. But I sent one to a station in Louisville, Kentucky, and I got probably the best rejection letter I've ever seen in my life. Not only personally, I've ever seen. This was it was a 3-paragraph rejection letter, which is rare. Most of them are like one line, you know, and if you get one at all. And this one, he explained to me, remember, this is 1974, 1975. This news director explained to me why meteorologists had a problem on television. He said, they think they're there to educate, and they couldn't be more wrong. He said, the first thing you need to do is communicate. Second thing is inform. And if you have any time left over, you can educate. He said, meteorologists do the opposite. The first thing they do is they educate. And that turns off the audience. Right. Like you said, they're talking down to them. And then they inform, and then if they have any time, that they communicate. And I didn't know what he meant by that, because I didn't know what communicate meant in the sense of what we do now. And slowly but surely I learned that by getting on the air. And I tell people who want to be on TV or who are getting a job on TV and they've got the job, or even reporters. I tell them sometimes a reporter will get into the weeds on a story and they're getting too complicated. I said, if you want to be a success in this business, what you need to do is pretend that you're talking to your grandma and telling her whatever you did today. Grandma, I did this great story on whatever. Or if you're doing weather, you say, Grandma, this is what's going to happen tomorrow. And Grandma will nod along, and she'll like it.
Right.
And you can't pretend you're talking to a college professor. The college professor will just, because when college professor's not working, he just wants to sit there and he's watching TV. He wants to know the same thing Grandma wants to know. So it's the same thing. You don't try to impress anybody. You've got to be yourself, and hopefully your personality will come across. Hopefully you got a good personality.
Yeah, hopefully, if you're going to,
some people do.
If you're going to stay in there any length of time, you better, right? Well,
that's right.
Two more things real quick, Paul, before we go. I know this has been a very long interview, but I think with 35 plus years, you can't wrap it up in 10 minutes. So I know we've extended on, and I know people have loved the stories and the reminiscing with you, because like I said, we all feel a personal connection with you. Two final things, and then we'll wrap it up quickly here. One thing that I know that you have loved over the years, you and I have talked about this, is junior forecasters. I know that's something that you had done for so long. And then I'm going to go ahead and give you the second question now so you can answer both of them as we wrap up our interview. I know one of, during the announcement yesterday, you announced that David Carnes would be performing the chief meteorologist duties after your retirement in July. First of all, I just want you to talk a little bit about junior forecasters, and then I just want you to tell me your thoughts about David Carnes and your relationship with him, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. The junior forecaster, we started about a year after I got here, and it was a producer's idea, and I thought it was a great idea. And you can do that in a market of this size. To do something like that in Atlanta, I don't know if it works so well. But in a market of this size, which is a more a hometown type market, it works really well. So we brought in the kids. You know, for years we've probably had close to 1,500 junior forecasters, is my guess.
Wow.
And that's a lot of kids. And I've had people come up to me and say, they look at me and say, "You remember me?" As soon as they say that, and they're adults.
Right.
And I go, "You were junior forecaster." And they go, yeah, you remember?" I said, no. You look a lot different.
It's just the opening question, yeah.
And that's right. That's a question. It lets me know you remember me. So we've been doing that, and we would still be doing that right now, but with this COVID thing, we can't.
Sure.
And so I don't even know by the time I retire if we're going to be doing it again. But I'm sure Channel 3 will start doing it again with David, because David's very personable. And this leads into David, too. So David's, he accepted the job as my replacement, and he'll actually start a little bit beginning of next year, and we'll probably change some of the shifts and all that. So the audience, the evening audience, is different than the morning audience.
Right.
And the evening audience will get used to him. So he'll sort of instead of all of a sudden abruptly appear to my replacement, he'll slide into it slowly. And we'll give him, I'll give him 5-6 months to do something like that. And it'll be good for him. People will get used to it. And David's very personable. Once you get to see, if you haven't seen him, if you're working nights or you're watching TV at night, he'll fit right in. And then we've got a great team. We've got Brittany and Allison. We'll hire somebody else to come in, probably to do the weekends, and Allison will move up probably into what Brittany's doing now, and Brittany's going to do the mornings. So it's at least that's the plan right now. And maybe I shouldn't have said that, but that's the plan right now. Okay, but and that's how it's gonna be. So I think with the team that we got, is a really good team, very knowledgeable people. The technology that we have at Channel 3 beats everybody. The stuff that we show you on the radar with the severe storms, we get it from a company in Huntsville. The radar, it's not our radar, but it hooks into the Weather Service. That company, it's called Barys Services, is the best in the business. And they are the top radar company in the world right now. They work all over the world. And one of the reasons I can do what I do when we do have severe weather is because of Barys and our partnership with them, showing you the data, showing you those little arrows, telling you winds are 95 miles an hour in this storm, or on the Easter storm, 110 mile an hour winds. The radar can show that, and that's an estimate because it's only glancing at it for a second or so, but it can see it. And we can do stuff that other stations can't do. It's the best system, and that's why I think we've made a name for ourselves in severe weather, especially at Channel 3, because a partnership with Barys and the knowledge that our people have, it's heads and it's heads above everybody else. So David's going to work. He's going to take my place. He's excited. He's very excited. He told me, he said that he was a high school kid. And he used to watch me. Now that really makes you feel old. So that's one of the reasons. But you get to a certain age and you say to yourself, you can't do this forever. You don't want to be going up there and and you want to be spunky. And at certain ages, then you lose your spunkiness.
I got you, Paul. I'm not too many years behind you right there, but I definitely understand what you're saying. But you will be sadly missed. And Paul, we don't want to get too corny, but we love you as far as you feel like you're part of the family. And I know so many homes feel that way. But we definitely got time to still enjoy over the next several months, and we will continue to do that. And I would just maybe hope to say that maybe we don't get you in any big messes over the next several months with weather. Maybe, we don't want to send you out with a bang, maybe is the best way to say it. Maybe we can just sell you on out of here on some smooth, clear months of nice weather around the Tennessee Valley. But
yeah, that would be fine with me, too.
I can imagine. And with the home fires, I'm sure, as well. Well, I know that part of your retirement, you're wanting to spend more time, I believe, with kids, grandkids, and those type things. So I wish you nothing but the best with that. And we'll definitely be talking more over these next several months. But Paul, thank you. Thank you so much for being that person that we could rely on over these last 35 plus years. And thank you for just your continued professionalism and being a part of the Chattanooga, Cleveland, Bradley County, Polk County. We could go all around the horn here and people that you have been a part of their lives for so many years. And we look forward to the next several months.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Dwayne. I've been blessed with all the stuff that I've already told you. Everything has been just so wonderful. And my wife told me, she said, because I thought when I started in the business that I got in too late. She says, no, you got in just at the right time, and you're going to be getting out at the right time.
There you go.
For me.
There you go.
That's how you look at it. Yep.
Well, Paul, thanks so much.
You can't fight Father Time, that's for sure.
Nope, you can't. Well, Paul, thanks so much. It's been great talking to you today. Hope I didn't keep you too long from other things you got going on. But just wanted to get you on and be a part of the community. Okay.
Thanks, Dwayne. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody out in the WCLE area.
All right. Well, Paul, enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Again, Chief Meteorologist Paul Barys right there. What a guy. If you're someone that's been around this area like I have all my life, you've listened to Paul over the years. You've learned to trust him. You've learned to welcome him into your home. And that's just something, as I talked about, he's very personable and just a great guy on top of that. He will be missed once he's off the air. Again, his replacement, I wouldn't say replacement, the next man up is maybe the best way to say it, is going to be David Carnes, a great guy as well that we hear on our station here in the mornings, that he is the morning weather guy for now, and he will be moving up into that evening position. All right, so an extended interview. We hope that you enjoyed that. That's part of what we do here at WCLE. I know that was a little bit longer than a typical interview, but as I said, you cannot capsize 35 years in just a matter of a few minutes, especially with the stories and the information and everything that Paul Barys has brought to us over the years. We're going to get back into, I'll tell you what, let's hit a quick song here, and then we'll get back into some other things we've got going on here at Mix 104.1. Governor Bill Lee coming up with Steve in just a little bit at 11 o'clock. So stay here with us on Mix 104.1 WCLE.